Hello and welcome to Freedom Facts. My name is Andy, and today I'll be discussing the Fermi Paradox, the National Aeronautics Space Act of 1958, and DNA teleportation. So to start off with, the Fermi Paradox, for anyone who's not familiar, is named after physicist Enrico Fermi and refers to the apparent contradiction between the lack of evidence for and the high probability estimates of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. The basic points of the argument made by physicist Enrico Fermi and Michael Hart are: there are billions of stars in the galaxy that are similar to the Sun, and many of these stars are billions of years older than the solar system. With high probability, some of these stars have Earth-like planets, and if the Earth is typical, some may have developed intelligent life. Some of these civilizations may have developed interstellar travel, a step the Earth is investigating now. Even at the slow pace of currently envisioned interstellar travel, the Milky Way galaxy could be completely traversed in a few million years. Basically, it's the old question, where is everybody? And if they're out there, why haven't they visited us here? So another article that goes into great detail is this one on waitbutwhy.com. It's published back in May of 2014 by Tim Urban. So basically, I'll just read a few parts here. They give some good numbers, which I like. Says that a really starry sky seems vast, but all we're looking at is our very local neighborhood. On the very best nights, we can see about 2,500 stars, roughly 100 millionth of the stars in our galaxy. And almost all of them are less than 1,000 light years away from us, or 1% of the diameter of the Milky Way. So what we're really looking at is this. It shows a picture here of the Milky Way galaxy, and this little red dot right here is our night sky. That's it. That's all we can actually see. So much more out there. So as many stars as there are in our galaxy, 100 to 400 billion, there are roughly an equal number of galaxies in the observable universe. So for every star in the colossal Milky Way, there's a whole galaxy out there. Altogether, that comes out to a typically quoted range between 10 to the 22nd and 10 to the 24th total stars, which means that for every grain of sand on every beach on Earth, there are 10,000 stars out there. Just crazy. Science world isn't in total agreement about what percentage of those stars are sun-like, which would be similar in size, temperature, and luminosity to our sun. Opinions typically range from 5% to 20%, going with the most conservative side of that, 5%, and the lower end of the number of total stars, 10 to the 22nd. That gives us 500 quintillion, or 500 billion sun-like stars. There's also debate over what percentage of those sun-like stars might be orbited by an Earth-like planet, which is basically one that's similar temperature conditions, that could have liquid water, and potentially support life similar to that of Earth. So if we say it's as high as, or some say it's as high as 50%, but let's go with the more conservative 22% that came out of a recent PNAS study. The PNAS is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. So the study was published back in November of 2013, definitely worth a read. That suggests that there's a potentially habitable Earth-like planet orbiting at least 1% of the total stars in the universe, which would be a total of 100 billion Earth-like planets. So there are 100 Earth-like planets for every grain of sand in the world. Think about that the next time you're on a beach. Moving forward, we have no choice but to get completely speculative. Let's imagine that after billions of years in existence, 1% of Earth-like planets develop life. If that's true, every grain of sand would represent one planet with life on it. And imagine that on 1% of those planets, the life advances to an intelligent level like it did here on Earth. That would mean there were 10 quadrillion, or 10 million billion, intelligent civilizations in the observable universe. Moving back to just our galaxy and doing the same math on the lowest estimate for stars in the Milky Way, 100 billion, we'd estimate that there are 1 billion Earth-like planets and 100,000 intelligent civilizations in our galaxy alone. So here they show some pretty good timeline maps. So they kind of go with this hypothetical situation that there's this 8 billion year old planet X. Of course, just hypothetical, just to give sort of a time frame, state of mind to kind of envision where that planet might be. So it shows here the Big Bang, 8 billion years ago. This planet X is born. 4.54 billion years ago, Earth is born, and this is present day. It says if planet X has a similar story to Earth, let's look at where their civilization would be today. So basically, here's showing similar time frames of when both planets start. At this point, it would have reached our civilization 4.5 billion years after this planet X came into existence. Then now it would be 3.46 billion years of development beyond where we are today. This is just astounding. So technology and knowledge of a civilization only 1,000 years ahead of us could be as shocking to us as our world would be to a medieval person. A civilization 1 million years ahead of us might be as incomprehensible to us as a human culture is to chimpanzees. Planet X is 3.4 billion years ahead of us. So yeah, that's kind of all I really want to discuss today on the Fermi Paradox. But basically, it's that age-old question. You look up into the sky, you see these millions of stars out there, and we never actually had contact. No one, no planet, no civilization has ever come from another planet and contacted us. Obviously, there's stories, if you look into it, the UFO phenomenon, if you're interested in it, there's tons of stuff out there. There's thousands of reported sightings of UFOs, video captures. Obviously, there's the Roswell crash, which, was basically a spaceship that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Alien bodies were actually discovered on it. The craft was actually taken. Just astounding stuff out there. Please go take a look if you're interested. There's a lot more that actually kind of goes to show more than what we're told, at least by our government and by NASA. That leads me into this next topic of the National Aeronautics Space Act of 1958 by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. So there's two sections here that I want to talk about. One is Section 206, Part D. It states that no information which has been classified for reasons of national security shall be included in any report made under this section, unless such information has been declassified by or pursuant to authorization given by the President. To continue on, the next section, 305I, states that the administration shall be considered a defense agency of the United States for the purpose of Chapter 17 of Title 35 of the United States Code. So this was in 1958 when this was written, fairly shortly after NASA first came into existence. So since almost its beginning, it's been classified as a defense agency. What is there to defend against if there's nothing out there? Are we defending against other countries in space with their technology? Are we defending against other space anomalies, meteorites? What is there? But you've got to think, if they're going this far, stating that things that NASA finds can be classified for national security, that in its existence it is a defense agency of the United States, there must be something that they're trying to defend and classify. If there's nothing out there, if there's no other intelligent life, no other intelligent civilizations, nothing else that would ever pose a threat to Earth, to the United States, why must NASA be a defense organization? Then there's that age-old, saying NASA stands for never a straight answer. So the next thing I want to go into is this popular science article about DNA teleportation. The title of it is, Can DNA Electromagnetically Teleport Itself? One researcher thinks so. Nobel Prize winner Luc Montagnier describes a phenomenon in which DNA emits electromagnetic signals of its own construction, ghost DNA. that can be mistaken by enzymes as the real deal and replicated in another place. Essentially, it's DNA teleportation. So basically, the experiment he did here was he had one test tube that had DNA in it. He placed other test tubes with just water nearby and had a generator of 7 hertz running through all of the test tubes. I'll go on and read a little bit more here. States a Nobel Prize winning scientist who shared the 2008 prize for medicine for his role in establishing the link between HIV and AIDS has stirred up a good deal of both interest and skepticism with his latest experimental results, which more or less show that DNA can teleport itself to distant cells via electromagnetic signals. If his results prove correct, they would shake up the foundations upon which modern chemistry rests. But plenty of Montanier's peers are far from convinced. The full details of Montanier's experiments are not yet known, and his paper has not yet been accepted for publication, but he and his research partners have made a summary of his findings available. Essentially, they took 2 test tubes, one containing a fragment of DNA about 100 bases long, another containing pure water. And they isolated them in a chamber that muted the Earth's natural electromagnetic field to keep it from muddying the results. The test tubes were housed within a copper coil emanating a weak 7 hertz electromagnetic field. Several hours later, the contents of both test tubes were put through polymerase chain reactions to identify any remnants of DNA, a process that subjected the contents to enzymes that would make copies of any DNA fragments they found. According to Montanier, the DNA was recovered from both tubes, even though the second should have only contained water. Montanier and his team say this suggests DNA emits its own electromagnetic signals that imprint the DNA structure on other molecules, like water. Ostensibly, this means DNA can project itself from one cell to the next, where copies could be made, something like quantum teleportation of genetic material, a notion that's spooky on multiple levels. Spooky and quite fascinating. Naturally, there is plenty of skepticism to go around regarding these findings, ranging from outright dismissal to measured doubt. Indeed, it's a pretty radical notion, DNA replicating itself through ghost imprints rather than the usual cellular processes. More details will emerge when the paper is published in a peer-reviewed journal, as it is likely to be. This was, again, though, done back in January 13th of 2011, so quite a while ago. Haven't seen anything come out yet. Haven't seen any peer-reviewed or replicated studies. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's quite astounding. These are the results that they found in their experiment. See, the findings will then have to be repeated on multiple independent studies to be considered valid, something that will take some time. In the meantime, expect these findings to draw equal parts intrigue and skeptical scrutiny. So, I mean, yeah, just the implications of this alone completely change chemistry and biology. If DNA itself has its own electromagnetic signal and it can literally teleport itself into a vial of only water and make a copy of itself, it's absolutely astounding. I mean, that could, go into explain how life could have formed on our planet, how it possibly can form on other planets. It's quite astounding. So that was again the work by Luc Montagnier. Definitely worth looking into this study a little bit more. Just quite amazing. I mean, I really do hope that other scientists try to replicate this experiment. I mean, that would just be absolutely awesome to see this done again and to see more analysis into this experiment. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching Freedom Facts. Remember, question everything and find the facts that free your mind because you are unlimited.